Good afternoon and welcome to the Joy Show. I'm Barbara Schreiner Trudell, and Joy is an acronym for just one U. And it is my great joy to interview people and to share ideas about living that authentic life. To begin today, I want to start with a land acknowledgement. We are honored to work, live, and play within the city of Toronto on the historical and traditional territory of many Indigenous nations, including the Anishinaabe, the Wendat peoples, and more recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Haudenosaunee nations. And we acknowledge the diverse First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island. By making this acknowledgement, we strive to be allies and take an active part in reconciliation by honoring the land, the history, and the unique Indigenous heritage of our First People. This fosters our commitment to the recommendations set forth by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We recognize our oneness, we realize our history, and we choose to create a new reality. We are one. Miigwech. Well, my guest today is Benton Mcknight. He is a freelance videographer, photographer, writer, social activist, and he is a board member of the Toronto People with AIDS Foundation. He's currently completing a master's degree in communication and culture while furthering his support and participation in community arts practice. His interest is social justice and equity, and this has informed his years of involvement in volunteer work with local and community organizations in his home city of Toronto. And we serve on the PWA board together. That's how we got to know each other. Welcome, Benton.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, we
Yeah.
do.
So glad you could be here. Now, part of your work is in the area of mental health. You work for an organization that supports people going through whatever they're going through.
Yes. Coming off COVID in the last 3, 4 years, being in an environment like that, you really realize how devastating it has been for so many different peoples and different families. And you trying to be there and to help people, through the work. But you also have your own personal experience of that devastation as well.
Yeah.
And and I think one of the good things that the good things about it is the fact that it has brought a lot of us closer together. It has helped a lot of us become much more aware and considerate of others around us, and put us in position where we can use the issues that are there to reconnect, ourselves to others, to our community, and to realize again the importance of family, not just from a biological perspective, but family as a community.
Yeah, I think that's a really important one. And it's one of the things that's really struck me with our board at PWA Toronto. Like our board to me feels a bit like a family. Like we have grown together in interesting ways. And we've been on the board now a little over a year. And it seems like there's some really good stuff happening in the way that we support the community members of PWA.
It's it's a realization of that. You're supporting the community members, yes, but it's also how we support each other. The whole
Yeah.
aspect that we are so diverse, that we come from different backgrounds, we come from different experiences, and in a sense it's almost like a microcosm of what needs to happen in the world, where
Mhm.
different people need to come together to really understand what the issues are. When we're dealing with whether it's racism or not, it's very
Mhm.
easy for people to feel that when the conversation starts, that one is being attacked and all that, and be on a board where you've got that diversity, where it allow us to have those conversations in let's call it a family setting. you know
Yeah.
I think that is very helpful, moving forward, and give us an idea of the work that we can then take out into the community, and
Yeah.
hopefully extend that into the wider aspect as well.
Well, and it really does feel like a microcosm of the macro. Like when I look at the diversity of our board, which is really remarkable, the way that we communicate with one another's, the relationships that are developing,
Right.
and I look at the work that we've committed to, which is really really exciting. Yeah, I look at that and go, well, maybe we're the place where we create the model that can then go into corporations and other nonprofits and really begin to create that deep work that absolutely will end up with equity and oneness being like fully realized rather than, a little
Yeah.
bit talked about, but nobody's actually put their rubber to the road, right? And we're doing that. It's
I think
pretty.
I think it's important that we look at it from that perspective,
Mhm.
because it is work. It's
It
it's
is
it's
work.
not anything that you can just gloss over, and
No,
and it's not exactly going to be all fun work. There's going to
no,
be
it
some
won't.
painful moments in it as well, and
Yeah,
and I think the more we can look at it from that perspective, the more we can will most likely stay in a present moment of supporting each other
yeah,
and learning together, working together to ensure that the foundations we're creating stays permanent and that we
yes.
can build on it and move forward from there.
Yeah, and I think, with the things that are happening with our group, when I look at, I mean, when we first came together, we had no idea. We were all from different places and different backgrounds and how's it going to work? We didn't know. But over the year, we have really anchored in some strong ideas, some really big
Mhm.
ideas. And what I love the most about it is that we seem to be able to commit to that work that is going to be difficult, and that's going to be kind of that unraveling our own inner biases,
Right.
because that's going to come up. There's going to be emotional stuff that's going to come up because I don't think we even know some of the areas where we might feel a bit biased one way or another. And in order to serve our community and then to expand this, uh, I'm going to say globally because, going to make a big vision
Mhm.
here. Um, in order to do that, it really is about sort of healing our own wounds, our own areas of disconnect,
Right.
our own history. I look at how I was raised and what my life experience has been, which is very different from many people on the board.
Right.
I mean, I come from a background of violence. I come from a background of child abuse, of sexual assault. I come from a background of white privilege, a white person in a white city raised in a white family. And, that in itself creates a model for me that I've been working on it for years, but it's like changing some of that programming that we just take for granted. This is the way it is. And I think
Right.
that's the part that really needs an interrupt.
Well, the, I think in a sense for us to get to this place that we already have had to be doing some work on ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the interesting thing you learn, or I've learned in a sense, is that when we talk about constructs,
Mhm.
um, part of why this doing this master's changed my life really was the fact that before I started that, I had no idea about constructs.
Right.
And and you don't realize that every single thing in your life as you know it was constructed by someone. you
Mhm.
know if you talk about skin color, and then you
Mhm.
start investigating what is that about and why this is the significance of black or the significance of white. Every aspect of your life that you think is yours, you then realize has been constructed by someone. If
Yeah.
you say you're Canadian, what does that mean? If I say I'm Jamaican, what's that? What does that mean? And there's
Yeah.
all these labels that we just accept and we just take, and we
Right.
don't question where they come from. And when you start doing these work, it forces you to go back into those aspects of yourself and really start paying attention and questioning aspect of the very basic of your beliefs.
Yeah. And I
Because
think,
everything, because you take on so much,
yeah,
even the whole aspect of, Barbara, we go back to, I am man, you're woman. You know, you get these things and you say, "Oh, but what does that mean?" And now we're
what is
living in
that?
that time where all of these things are being deconstructed.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Well, I even look at, a lot of, I listen to a lot of music because I'm always putting it in my services and stuff.
right?
And there's a lot of brother and sister stuff. And I'm going back to my musicians going, we can't say that anymore. We need to talk family because
Hmm.
when we say brother sister, what about transgender people? Like how do the people who are non-binary, how do they
Right,
fit into that story? And so when I think about social justice and I think about equity and inclusion, there's all kinds of talk around inclusion in the
right,
different spiritual communities that I've been a part of. And, I got to call them on it sometimes because what do you actually mean by inclusion? And can you be inclusive when it makes you uncomfortable, when it makes you feel threatened? Like
exactly,
in that moment, can you ramp it up and be inclusive? Because sometimes we're inclusive of something, but not everything.
exactly.
And it's a big ask,
It is, but I
the
guess
same time.
for me, I realize that it's a part of my own human journey and my own human process. If we are going to talk about we want to be effective in change, um, then those are some of the questions, and that's the aspect of the work that you will be doing, because in a way you cannot unpack anything in a sense if you're not willing to unpack yourself.
That well, that's one of the things when we had that first meeting before we really dove into this work, I said to everybody, "Are you ready?" Because
Exactly. Yes.
I'm asking myself that question, am I ready to really unpack all that I think I am,
Right.
or hope that I am, or really hope that I'm not? Right? Like, what are those? Because there are a lot of questions and there's a lot of stuff that we have no idea about. And so, this journey that we're on is really about waking up to the fact that there is one race of people and everyone has value, and every person, what I like about the idea of joy for me is just one you, right? Every person created unique and special and essential to the collective,
Right.
right? No person can be left out. And I don't care if you're the president of corporation or if you're the guy picking up my trash on Friday. The guy picking up my trash actually has more importance to me because when they go on strike, oh man, do you notice, right? Very quickly. And I think sometimes we have to put in perspective, these letters that follow our names or precede our names, or, the amount of money that we earn, the economy. That's another place where we really abuse people and destroy their dignity. And, it's an area for me that I really think we need to do some big work around as well. So it's like, how do we sort of balance the playing field where we start to acknowledge that every single job, every single person has inherent value, no one better than the other. Like that's, it might be a big step trying to get there, but that's what we have to do.
I think in a way, there is a saying, I'm not even remember where it comes from, but there's a saying that I've heard, the hurt is a living organism. It's alive.
It is.
And, and, and understanding that everything basically is a lesson.
Mhm.
And to further what you were just talking about, we have had that lesson through COVID. COVID
Yes.
basically taught us who the true essential workers were.
Yeah.
And so, I think life will always, you know, have different reminders of different things coming up. We just have to pay attention to it.
Absolutely.
And part of the work that we're trying to do, that's part of why it's important, because it's about um, interrupting and disrupting a lot of social behavior or social conditioning, or social structures
Yeah.
that have existed all this time.
Hmm.
And how do we basically allow so many much more of the ordinary person to start understanding, or to start reestablish and getting reacquainted with their power? Because in a sense, that is part of what has been taken away. We
Yeah.
see things happen in a certain way. We think that it's okay for someone to be running around doing 2 3 jobs, right?
And trying to raise a family
And
doing it.
exactly, and and
Yeah.
and and a lot of us don't think about the fact that those are things like that are created in that way,
Hmm.
because what it does is takes away your power from you ever being present fully in what is happening around you. You're so caught up in trying to have a life that the little things that are important about how your life is, you're not paying attention to.
Well, it's like Maslow's hierarchy,
Yeah.
right? The base needs have to be met. This is where I get really frustrated when it comes to minimum wage and Ontario Works and stuff. I'm like,
Right.
come on. If we were paying people $20 an hour, they would spend it all, and that would boost the economy.
Exactly.
Like, paying people $14 or $12, or Ontario Works. When I heard what a single mom with a child gets on Ontario Works in Toronto, I was absolutely appalled. You can't rent a room for that, let alone feed a child and clothe a child. And like, it's,
You see,
what are we what are we doing?
well, it's not from a point of view that it's not, people don't know. And when I say people, I am sort of alluding to the people in power, the government,
Yeah.
because it's interesting that when government changes, oftentimes one of the first thing they do
Hmm.
is give themselves raises.
Yeah.
So if everything was equal and okay, why would they do that? So they know.
Yeah.
So it's also, I think, for a lot of us on the local level
Hmm.
to start paying much more attention. When I say back to the power that we have, because in a sense, if this is the situation out there, then why are we electing these people
Exactly.
to recreate these things?
Yeah.
You know, like, it's a very fascinating thing when you think about what is it that makes us think that a very rich person, and not to say that they're not maybe rich people who have a heart and a mind and a soul, but what is it
Hmm.
that makes us think that rich people are the best people for us to put in position of power, as if we feel that they're going to truly represent the ordinary.
They can't because they don't understand it.
They're disconnected from it.
They're disconnected. Absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
when we're talking about aspect of power, these are the conversation we need to start having on a grassroots level,
Hmm.
for us to reconnect to the point that, as people will point out all the time, it's the people. The power is in the people,
It is.
but it's what we need to remember.
Yeah.
And it's
That's
about
why
how
all
do
of
we come
the
together. It's about how do we come together
yeah.
to start, doing the work to support each other, to understand, because a big part of
Yeah.
that is the lack of education. And again, people have to realize that's intentional. It's not, it's
Absolutely.
not just accidental. It's intentional.
It's
So
intentional. And when you look at the curriculum in the schools, it's sorely missing. Like, what's really neat, have you ever taken a math class where they taught you to reconcile your bank account?
no,
Of course not. That would be a
no,
useful thing. Or how about communication? How do we communicate in conflict? Nobody
exactly,
teaches that.
exactly.
Personal empowerment, well, that's definitely not going to be taught.
Hmm.
And I think if we can, I've often said, what we've missed out on is that the masses have the power. It's just they forgot. So even in my vision statement with my spiritual center, it's, you know, transforming lives through the emergence of the
Right.
sacred, authentic self. Because as we come to understand how unique and special and remarkable we are, what
Right.
happens is then we feel empowered. When we feel empowered, we can stand up and take action. But while we're feeling victimized and small and limited, we have no dignity, we have no self respect because somebody's, treating us less than human.
But Barbara, as part of that whole thing, think about the fact that as a society, you know, basically the biggest lie that we have bought into is that we're different.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
the power of that lie,
Hmm.
and how
Yeah.
we don't realize that buying into that allows certain aspect of the society to control our behavior.
Yes.
Because as long as we can, we can keep, blaming each other for whatever the issues are, we're not going to look to see where, what's the real issue that's happening.
Yeah.
And so it comes back to, that, to me, that big lie that we're so different,
Yeah. We're the
you know,
same.
when exactly. And
We're the same.
I think if we can get back to a place where we start trusting that and believing in that again,
Yeah.
that to me is maybe a great place to start, because we realize
Yeah.
that, that color is not, it's not, in a sense, it's not a real aspect, in a sense of
No.
anything that defines us as human beings. But
No.
again, it's all of these things that have been constructed with an intention to destabilize us. And I think getting beyond that is maybe the most important thing, if we can get back to a place of understanding we all are basically one. And again,
Yeah.
if we can choose to stand in a place of love.
Well, and I think that's what we're doing at PWA, which really thrills me to no end, is we have this beautiful diverse group
Right.
who have decided to walk together on a path that's going to be pretty rocky, I think. But it's done with such respect. It's done with such consideration of each other and the community we serve that I think we're going to be a model for something so much bigger that maybe we can become a model for the city of Toronto, and then from there the country of Canada. And but you're right, we have to accept our oneness. We all want the same things. I interviewed Santa Claus last week, and what Santa said is, we all want to be loved. We all want to love. We want to feel appreciated and respected, right? We
Right.
all want the same things. And, coming to that place of really honoring where we are and where we're headed. We got some work to do, but I'm
we
excited to do it.
we got some work to do, and but part of what I became very aware of, um, when I realized this work was going to happen, um, because you cannot take yourself out of the equation.
No.
It's the realization that, in a sense, we can talk about what is it that we want, um, but at the same particular point, like a simple aspect, you could ask a person, "Do you love yourself?" and the answer is going to be yes.
Yeah,
And then you say, "But if you love yourself, then why are you doing these things to yourself?"
exactly.
And so you realize that we cannot take the self out of the equation. Everything that we're going to be doing, or we want to do for the rest of the world, we have got to be willing to do that for ourselves. And
Yeah.
so if we don't really know how to love and appreciate ourselves, then how do we give that gift to someone else? And so part of the work, when we're deciding that we're going to be working on this as a collective, it's also when we talk about, opening up ourselves, that's the work that we have to do on
It is
ourselves
the
as
work.
well. Because as much as we're doing that as a collective as PWA, we also have to then understand the responsibility individually
Hmm.
of what we learn, of what we do with that moving forward.
Yeah.
And that's why I find it so multi-layered, because as much as you're disrupting and and getting an understanding, it's about the same impact that we're having as a collective, the same impact we're basically having individually on ourselves. And unless those two things are working cohesively together, we're not going to succeed.
Exactly. And I think that for me is the big one. It's something I've been working on for years. And I think that in order for us to move forward, that's going to have to be the deep work. And I think that's where we find separation, is that few people at this point seem really willing in our world today to do that self-reflective work, to do that, acknowledging or healing of whatever harm has happened in their life, or how they've taken on ideas of limitation. That all of that has to be unpacked, and that's going to
Mhm.
be the work that is going to be a little bit stretching for us
You see,
because we don't know what we're going to find yet.
everybody, if we we do understand that race is a construct, right?
Yep.
But within each race,
Hmm.
then we have to start doing that deconstruction, because part of the problem in each of our different races is the fact of a certain belief that there is not part of the scarcity mentality is that there's
Yeah.
not enough, there will never be
Yes.
enough. And
Yeah.
so within the
Another
races
lie.
itself, right, then
Mhm.
you have people, I'm getting mine. It's
Yeah.
like, for instance, right, um, from a black perspective,
Yeah.
I go back to the Colin Kaepernick situation,
Hmm.
right? Here is a moment where you have a league where over 75% of this league are black men.
Hmm.
And this situation in the States has been happening for generations. And so this person decided, I'm going to take a knee to bring attention to this.
Yeah.
Now, as a collective, if we were, as say the guys in the football league, if they were aware, they would have
Hmm.
realized this is a pivotal moment, that if all of us came together and said, we all are taking a knee,
Yes.
what were the owners going to do? They couldn't shut down the league. They would force them to come to the table to really work on some meaningful changes.
Yeah.
But as long as you can have division in that time, say, well, no, I'm just going to look about mine. I'm just want, I don't care what the social. I'm just going to focus on what I can get mine. I want mine. As long as we can have these situations happening within the races,
Yes.
again, it's the conditioning that forces us to make some to put us in a place where we'll never advance, because we will never come together. We'll never look at things from a unified perspective, as this is a moment for us to really come together for each other.
And
And
that's what
so,
we have to
yeah,
do.
and so when you basically look at the work that needs to be done,
Yeah.
apart from, if you're going to talk about the issues between blacks and whites and Chinese and Asian and all that, but we also have to look at the work that needs to be done individually, the healing that needs to be done within
Mhm.
the races themselves, to
Oh,
be able
yeah,
to
within
move
our
to move
families.
forward. Exactly. you
Yeah,
know
everything.
all of this is so multi-layered when you look at it.
It is.
you know
We've taken on a big job.
well, but it's not an option we have, in a sense.
It's not an
It's not an
option. It
option.
is not an
It's not an
option.
option
We
we
have
have.
to do it.
If we're
Yeah,
thinking about, because I think we have really gotten to a place now where we're realizing that our ignorance is really doing damage to the planet.
it is at every level. On
It's
that note, we're going to take a little commercial break.
okay.
Will only be a minute, so don't go away, anybody. You're watching The Joy Show, and I'm here with my wonderful guest, Benton Mcknight, and we're going to be back with a whole lot more conversation, so stick around. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Oh, this is the Joy Show. I'm Barbara Schreiner Trudell, and my guest today is Benton Mcknight. Well, Benton, we're definitely. I don't know if we're solving problems or, but I think we're illuminating them. I think that's a good step. And we just had an advertisement for Spirit Cafe. I'm going to have to get you on there as well. Courageous conversations for changing times is what we do on that show. We talk
But
about
you know,
everything.
the realization, is that we have to realize that, as we have alluded to before, you can't talk about change if you're not willing to, to change, to work on
Yeah.
yourself, and allow the change to come to you as well.
And we have
Um,
to be willing to pay a price for the change that we seek, right? I mean, there has to be a balancing of levels. We've got some people who are earning billions of dollars and
right,
some people who are scratching out, a very meager existence, if any at all. And there has to be a balance of that where we sit back and go, wait a minute, this isn't serving
right,
it's not even serving those who have all the money. It's not even serving them.
right.
It's just creating uh, a complete disconnect. And I think the price that we have to pay is that each one of us has to be willing to give up a little bit of our comfort or our level of privilege or whatever we've got so that we make sure somebody else is elevated, that we support each other in creating a more equitable world to live in. I don't know, maybe I'm talking about
No, I
communism.
see. I see that definitely. I see that definitely. But for me, I go a little bit deeper within it, in a sense where it comes to, are we willing to be truthful?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are we willing to accept truth in a wide scope understanding of it, not
Yeah.
just in regards to the world around us, but to ourselves.
And supporting each other.
Yeah,
Like
the
you
what?
mentioned in the football, right?
Yeah,
Like if everybody had supported that, it
change
would
would
have
have
been a
happened.
completely different.
Yes, but standing in truth is not easy. It's not
Yeah.
simple, and
Yeah.
it's maybe
Well,
the most painful experience that one has to go through.
mhm.
When you can no longer hide behind anything. You know, what is your reality? What is your own belief? Even when we talk about simple things, again, if we're going to talk about love,
Mhm.
you know, how do we love? When do we love? Who do we choose to love? We have moments, for instance, where we're on the street basically, and we could see someone in need,
Mhm.
and we basically feel moved to give that
Mhm.
person something. And
Mhm.
then there are the moments we're on it and we just don't feel like we're not giving. you know.
Yeah.
So when we talk about, for me, when we're talking about truth, it's the very basic human aspect of what is true. When I look at you, what do I see? Am I seeing a reflection of myself?
Mhm. Yeah.
So that level is in a way, I feel we have got to open ourselves up to those possibilities, and to have those conversations, not just with the world outside, with our friends, but but with ourselves, you know,
With ourselves,
with
especially.
ourselves. Yeah. What do
Yeah.
we need? Do we
And
do we need
yeah.
one more pair of shoes? Do we need one more? Do we need that? And so that is a level of conversation. I think
Mhm.
if we can realize that there's so much of the world in need, You know,
Yeah.
like for instance, again, Barbara, like we, you go into the supermarket, right?
Hmm.
And at about 9 o'clock in the night, you're clearing out the shelves and they're throwing the food into the, and you're thinking, but if there are people out there in need, can't we find a way to give the, so it's, when we're talking about the
Yeah.
word truth, it comes to me, it comes really back to what is truthful, what is
Yeah.
the word truth.
Yeah. And, one of the things that I've noticed far too often is the way that, people who are living on the street are treated. Um, it's so appalling to me that even if you have no money to give, you could have a conversation. You could smile and say, "Good morning. How are you? God bless you.
Mhm.
How is your day?" Even if you have nothing to give, you can still give a smile, a word of acknowledgement. You can connect. This is a human being
Right.
in front of you but by the grace of God, it isn't you, right? Because it could be, right?
Hmm.
I mean, I met a woman in Calgary a year and a half ago when I was visiting my son, and we're walking along the Stephen Avenue Mall, which is an outdoor mall. And this woman is pushing, a shopping cart with her possessions. And so she was asking for money. I, went and gave her the change that I had and started to chat with her. And she was like, kind of like, "Why are you being nice to me?" And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" She said, "People spit at me and tell me to go get a job." And I said, "Honey, I'm so sorry you go through that." And I said, "I'm going to be nice to you because I could be you." And I know that. I know that without a doubt. I've had times of poverty in my life. I know how hard it can be. And to be treated disrespectfully because you've lost everything, how is that? This is where we need to interrupt our stories and like you said, we have to really go deep and find truth within ourselves.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like, yeah, so many of us, the reality is, we're bought into the material aspect, and yeah, and we all can be guilty of that, but
of course.
in a sense, like, like you see so many people, either they're living in the big apartment or the nice car and all of that, and you think it's okay, and they're okay, and you don't, realize that some people are maybe living from one paycheck to the next paycheck.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, for instance, something like COVID happens, and then all of these people, it's
Hmm.
as you're saying, homelessness, can happen just like that in
Yeah.
one moment.
Hmm. And it was interesting through COVID when all of a sudden you'd go to the stores and you couldn't buy the necessities that you were accustomed to buying,
Hmm.
and how that really interrupted our paradigm a little bit, where all of a sudden we have to look at, what do I really need, right?
Hmm.
I've- I think I need all of this stuff, but the truth is, what do I really need? And that all of a sudden becomes painfully obvious. And
Hmm.
look at what happened to the environment when we got locked in. It flourished.
you
The
know
human being has a lot to learn
no,
about
exactly.
collaboration.
No, exactly. There was this saying that came out, the fact that, you know we cannot survive without the earth, but the earth can survive without us.
Oh, it can flourish without
Exactly. Exactly.
us. That for me was a really, is something that I knew, and yet to see it was, just so remarkable because you couldn't ignore it. All of a sudden, wildlife is everywhere, and the trees and everything are doing wonderfully. And
Hmm.
I think the Earth created this pandemic to interrupt the human machine so that we could learn to live differently. And I think that's what we need to do is figure out, I hear more and more people talking about downsizing and scaling back,
Right.
and that we really need so little. And if we were to, sort of change the way we live and the way we consume, what a difference that would make in really short order, actually.
That, but as you said, that that's part of what in a sense COVID showed us in a way,
Yeah.
you know, and that it doesn't have to, there's lots. One of the interesting thing for me, um, you know, it's like there's things that I'm learning, and there are things that I'm aware of. There are things that I can say, yes, I sort of know certain things, right?
Yeah.
But one of the stark awareness, um, is the older I get, in a way, the more I realize I know nothing.
Yes, I'm with you. Yeah, my birthday is w- today, Friday is my
Right,
birthday. And as a senior citizen, I'm like, it's so funny the government pays me to exist,
right,
which makes me giggle when I get my
right.
old security. But looking at life and what I thought I needed or wanted in my youth compared to what I need and want now, it's like night and day.
Oh, it is. It is. It's like, we have these conversations, like if, for instance, when we're, you can remember when you were growing up, right? You
Yeah,
could you could basically name the planets on your on one on your two, and we know what the planets were, right? That's all
exactly.
we know. This is what we know.
Yeah,
Try
yeah.
naming the planets now.
Oh, Earth.
What do we truly know about outer space? What do we
Yeah,
truly know about the sea? What do we truly know about, the herbs? And yes, we can say we know certain things, right?
yeah.
But what we are learning every day makes us realize we don't, it's maybe a tip of the iceberg
We know very
of
little.
exactly,
Yeah, yeah.
you
One of
know,
the things I like to tell my students is the very best thing in the world you can be is teachable.
exactly,
If
exactly,
that's what you aspire to, you will do well in the world and with humanity because every person we meet is an opportunity to discover something about them, right? This is why I love photography. When I look at pictures of the
right.
human face, I just, the wrinkles, the lines, the character, it's like it's so rich that it's almost like you can see the life that the person has had based on their skin and it's so beautiful. And I it's my favorite thing of all is pictures of people.
But in a way, it's maybe no different than when you hear the aspect of these scientists talk about tree rings, right? When you cut the tree and you start,
Yeah,
you start seeing it's it's a similar thing.
it is.
I think every aspect of life has that.
Yeah.
For instance, we don't even think about a stone,
No.
and the hundreds of years it takes to evolve and all that. But I think that's a process that is, in every aspect of life, that's a part of the process. And like even for me, one of the things I really enjoy, um, is whether it's on Facebook or whether it's wherever. But like for instance, when you see these videos of these animals, right? Animals that are not supposed to coexist together, that are not supposed to,
Yes.
be friendly with each other, and they are,
And
and
they are.
it makes me realize that as human beings, we
Yeah.
are basically the most arrogant animal. And in a sense, the fact that we don't know, again, we come back to not knowing, we don't know very much about these animals either.
That's true.
You know, they have their own language, they have their own systems. It makes us realize that, we are maybe the most ignorant
Well, look at when
of
that
all.
tsunami hit Thailand. Where were the animals? They'd
That,
left the beach.
oh, yeah,
They went to higher ground. They saw what was coming long
exactly,
before.
exactly,
And we
exactly,
have that intuition, we have that intuitive knowing, but it's been trained out of us. It's just like when people
exactly.
are teaching their children stranger danger.
Hmm.
I did not teach my child that. I taught her, you have a knowing inside of you. And if you feel bad around somebody, leave, get
Right.
away. And that idea of teaching people to be afraid of everybody, like what's good does that serve? Most
It
people
it
at the
serves
core are good.
it serves a good.
It does.
It serves a
How do
good
we
again.
control the masses?
Exactly,
Fear, 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 fear.
exactly.
Yeah,
It's maybe something I realized that it doesn't matter what you're feeling.
yeah,
It's almost as if when you strip it all down to the very base,
yeah,
what you find is fear. Everything is fear of something that
yeah.
conditions, aspect of our behavior in every single way.
And fear really, I heard an acronym a long time ago, which I think came out of a book called A Course in Miracles: false evidence appearing real.
Exactly,
And when I
exactly.
look at that, I go, yeah, most of what we fear has no real truth to it. It has no meat on its bones. It is simply an idea that's been implanted in
Hmm.
our minds through media, through the way we've been conditioned in our school system. Everything is about fear. If we can keep the majority fearful enough, we can control everything they do.
That's a part of the process, and
Of
and and,
course.
and when we're talking about disrupting, those are the aspects we have got to understand, that these are the things that we're talking about disrupting, in a sense.
Yeah.
um, not just outside of ourselves, but even our own inner own affairs that we also have, because
Yeah.
a lot of that is so deep seated,
Hmm.
um, that the level of work it takes to maybe get there, of putting it out of ourselves, and so
Yeah.
it's part, it goes back, everything ties back to, as we were saying, all the things that we're learning, on this journey of it at PWA, is also the fact that all of that is also how we use that to work on ourselves, and to
Hmm.
look at some of our own issues that we need to basically pay attention to, and to allow our own level of growth to happen in that process as well. So
Yeah. And like you mentioned earlier, can we love ourselves enough that we can begin to love those around us? Because we can't give what we don't have. And I think that's sort of the base thing is,
that
I know
is
when I was little, if you did anything for yourself, you were taught called selfish, self-centered,
vain.
vain.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like how dare you look after you? But the truth is, if I don't do me, I won't get done. And if you don't do you, you won't get done. And if you're not done, then the whole world suffers.
It's sort of what I realized too. I look at it from the perspective that it's a circle. You know,
Yeah,
as you give, so you receive. And so
always.
if you keep giving, and you're
Yeah.
not open to receiving, at some point you're not going to have anything to give.
Yeah. That's that whole martyr syndrome that absolutely destroys, it doesn't serve.
Yeah,
And again, that's a way of instilling that fear is, oh, you have to give everything you've got to, you know, do this, do that, do the other thing. And meanwhile, you're doing it from resentment, you're doing it from frustration, you're
exactly, exactly.
manipulation. It's like that's not giving.
No, it's not, and it really comes back to, when we talk about valuing ourselves. What
Yeah,
what
yeah,
value do we have?
yeah.
And in a sense, sometimes based on our social conditioning, that is the gift we were not given.
That's
But
true.
part of what I've sort of realized on my own journey, is the fact that irrespective of whatever we were given, or by whomever we were given it, at some point we've got to get to a place where we're willing to do some self inventory,
Yeah,
and you've got to figure out what gifts were I given that were not mine,
yeah.
that I need to let go of, and then and what do I need to keep, and being able to do that then allow you to create space for new things to come into your
Mhm.
into your life. And so it's part of that constant self-analysis
It
that
is.
that want us to do, on oneself.
Yeah, and
And
who am I really?
that's maybe the biggest question. Who am I? It's the biggest question, not
Yeah.
not who I was told I am, but who am I really? you
Who
know
am I really? Who am I
Yes.
really? If I didn't hear all of that messaging as a child, if I wasn't raised at the time I was raised,
Hmm.
what would my life look like today if I had some concept of who I am? I
You know,
mean,
for
that's
for
Oh, I think we lost Benton there, Justin. I'm hoping he'll come right back. But the conversation we're having is so rich. That idea of who am I? Oh my goodness, Deja. Thank you, sweetie. That's beautiful. Well, hopefully Benton will be right back. But as we come to getting near. Here we go. Here he is, right in the middle of your sentence. Uh,
trying to remember what I was about to say now. Yes.
I
But
got interrupted by a birthday cake, so
that's what was that is what was needed at the moment. Yeah.
it was. Oh, it was perfect. It was
Because
perfect.
I am one to admit I don't think I've ever seen a cake I don't like.
I know. I love cakes. But you were just talking about that finding ourselves, like, who am I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think from and again, this is going to be tied back into the work we're going to be doing with Anani and all that, because even as a black person from the Caribbean,
Hmm.
my name is Benton Mcknight.
Yeah.
So am I Scottish? Where does that come from?
Yeah. Yeah.
The whole aspect of when you hear people talk about, and it's part of why I find so much humanity in the native culture,
Yeah.
because it teaches you that we all are interconnected to every single thing around us. And so,
I
in a sense,
love it.
part of the journey of when you're going to say, "Who am I?" So, from an historical perspective, the fact that we all came out of Africa. So, what is our real names? Because
Exact
because it's
that's
understanding that
exactly
all of
right.
this is a construct again. So,
Every little bit of it.
who am I really?
Yeah.
And I think the deeper we get, the older we get, the more those things become very important in trying to figure out,
Yeah.
who are we really, truly.
Yeah, and it's a great exercise to ask that question, who am I? And what do I need? Not what do I want, but what do I need? And do I recognize that I'm the one who has to meet the need? Like, it's
Hmm.
not your job to meet my needs, right? It's not my partner,
Exactly.
it's not my kids. It's my job to meet my needs. And that's a big one. Most people don't quite get that.
Hopefully we all are on the journey to get there, because
Yes.
again, it comes back as we were talking about the knowing of self, in the
Yeah,
knowing,
it
and
is.
and 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 even that in a sense is a very interesting paradox, right?
Mhm.
Because it's not as if the knowing is static. So we're constantly in the knowing, we're constantly evolving and changing and growing. So in a sense, it's not as if we'll
Yeah.
ever truly know everything about who we are in a moment. So
No.
that's part of what maybe the fantastic paradoxes of life, in a sense.
Yeah.
That is not just to say that I know myself now, but I'm constantly knowing and growing and learning and changing and becoming and evolving.
Yeah.
you know and
And
there's a
it
beauty and there's a beauty to that.
oh, it's
There's
exciting.
a beauty to that, yes.
Yeah. Life is evolving and moving. I think, when I think about why we're here, because people ask me that sometimes, like, why am I here? What is the point of all this? And I said, we're here to live. We're not here to put in time to death. Interesting concept, but I don't think it's a good one. But
Hmm.
we're here to live. And that means there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be bumps in the road. There's going to be opportunities for elation and some for devastation. And all of it is going to serve somehow to create experience, which is what life is. It's one experience after another. And
Right.
we're just journeying along, right?
But if we can also remember, because sometimes we feel that a lot of the things that are happening are outside of ourselves, and to an aspect, a lot of it is.
Yeah,
But we also have to be very aware of also that a lot of these things we are also creating a lot of these things.
absolutely, we are.
And so I think if we can understand or get back to a place of understanding our responsibility um, to ourselves.
Yeah.
I think
One of
if
the
we can do that, it will allow us to reconnect to our responsibilities to everything else around us in a sense.
Absolutely. Well, that's where the oneness is really, that's how we build bridges to oneness, is
Right.
that the truth is we are all connected, that really the world is an energy system and we're a part of that energy system. So the connection is already made. We just have chosen to ignore it.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
as we come to remember, we can create a shift.
no, I use this analogy with some of my friends, and again, it's like, for instance, when you say sitting inside your house, or wherever you are, at night, for instance, and say you look out and you see a big apartment building, right? And you see all these square blocks with light in it, right? And in every square block is a family or a person or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But the source of the energy is it's one source,
One source.
and we are all using it in our own way,
Exactly.
and so it's I look to life for those little things to remind me
Yeah.
that we are interconnected,
Yeah.
or even,
Yeah.
Barbara, think about the fact that I'm sure we all have come up with situations, for instance, where you may have an idea. I
Mhm.
remember, like years ago when all of a sudden, painted jeans came out, and I'm thinking, "Yeah, but I was doing this, or I was doing this before this came out." And it's that more, interesting thing about an idea, right? You have an idea, and
The
then you know what?
ideas in the ether.
Yeah, yeah, and then you
Yeah.
basically, you see, well, that was my idea. Someone is doing it, and so again, little things like that makes us realize,
Realize for
and
sure.
yeah,
Well, this
and
has been we're at the end of our time, if you can believe it already. This has been fantastic. Benton, you are a remarkable guest. I'm so grateful that you said yes. And I hope you'll come back. I hope you'll do Spirit Cafe with us.
I will.
Oh,
And
that would be
Yeah,
awesome.
I
I
will, and we're
will.
and we're going to come back basically because we will have to talk about, as we journey through that process of PWA, we will have to talk about that too.
We will for
We will,
sure.
sure.
Thank you so much for saying yes. You've been watching The Joy Show. I'm Barbara Schreiner Trudell. This is my friend Benton Mcknight, twisting my words here. And I hope you're going to like, share, and subscribe. And we'll be back again next week. So stay tuned for more fun and games. Bye, everyone. Bye, Benton.
Bye bye.
On behalf of everyone at New Thought Media Network, thank you for being a member of our virtual family. Your financial contributions help share the New Thought message with people from around the world. Please visit and contribute at www.ntmedia.org/donate. New Thought Media Network, come be you. And please like, share, and subscribe.